Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, All In Health and Wellness. If you're looking for a health coach, you're looking for a sports performance coach, you're looking for nutrition guidance, like for instance, a meal-by-meal plan that will help you understand how to eat. It will teach you how to eat, and it will give your body, your cells, the proper nutrition to feel great and be able to perform at your best, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. If you're looking for those things, you're looking for the key to improve your sports performance, both from a nutrition standpoint and an exercise physical standpoint and a mental standpoint as you approach your athletic event. All In Health and Wellness is able to help in these areas. Go to allinhealthandwellness.com and you'll find the contact information for how to get in touch with them and get started on the plan that will improve your life. Well, welcome you all to the Confidence Through Health podcast.
It's so great to be here, Jerry.
So I'm excited to talk to you because the cancer word is a scary thing for a lot of people. And even though if you walk down the street, you probably and ask anybody you saw, they're going to tell you either they've dealt with them themselves, a family member, or a really close friend that has gone through it. And you wrote a book about your journey and how to basically help other people figure out the journey, sort of as a blueprint to like how to navigate the system on the patient side, correct?
Absolutely. I call it a playbook for the newly diagnosed, right? My experience and that of all those people you mentioned that you could walk by on the street, the first time you face cancer, it's very scary. It's very disorienting. There's a lot of language. There's a lot of activities that are unfamiliar. That unfortunately, if there is a second time, and there will be a second time because you will know somebody,
right?
Even if, hopefully it's not you. The second time is still not welcome, but it isn't anywhere near as disorienting.
Right.
And so I wanted to give people a playbook that says, okay, you heard something very scary. Here's what you'll know when it's over. Let me give that to you at the beginning so that you feel stability beneath your feet, where the earth felt like it was suddenly shaking. We can give you some stability. We can give you hope, confidence.
Right.
Because for most people, and I think you know this from your opening, for most people, cancer isn't going to be the end.
Yeah.
It's just something you have to go through.
Right. Right. And I like the way you put that, because I think a lot of people, and I know you're a businesswoman, and so it's like I'm sure that you've gone through putting a project together or goals or plans together for like, this is where I want to take this business or that project or whatever. And you go, okay, well, what does it look like at the end? Right? Everybody wants to, and that's a big piece of it is like, begin with the end in mind, right? As Stephen Covey said. And like, a lot of times, though, when we hear that diagnosis, at least people that I've talked to, you hear that diagnosis, and I've heard so many people say that their mind just shuts off and goes like, "Oh my gosh," and they don't hear anything else that's said, and they just automatically go to
the end.
My life is done.
The end.
Yeah.
Right. They go to the end, and you're so right. In fact, I wrote an article that got a lot of traction in Medical Economics Journal for primary care physicians and OB-GYNs and gerontologists when they have to tell people that it is malignant.
Yeah.
Because they may want to share 2,000 details and every single person stops hearing. They hear it's cancer and whatever next you said.
Yeah.
So, I tell people in the healthcare industry, in the healthcare world, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And here's how you can help them. Right? If you hear it's malignant, the experienced cancer patient which I would like everyone to never be, but if you are a cancer patient, to have the benefit of the experienced one. The first question is, can you recommend an oncologist?
Mhm.
Right? Nobody has an oncologist in their
Right.
medical
Yeah.
world unless you've had cancer.
Right.
Even me. I mean, Jerry, I have a genetic mutation
Mhm.
that gave me an 80% lifetime probability of breast cancer.
Yeah.
Right. And I did things to lower that as much as I could. And the lowest
Sure.
I could get it was 40%, which is
Okay.
still high,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Even me with that high a probability, I don't have an oncologist
Yeah.
because they have nothing to do for me. I
Right.
don't have cancer.
Yeah.
So if we back up to, if you hear it's malignant, you want to immediately turn on a recorder. And the
Mm.
doctors will say yes. Any recorder. It can be
Yeah.
voice memos. I like ones like Otter that actually make a transcript.
Right.
But you want to say, hold on, can I just start recording? Because I know I'm going to miss things.
Right.
And then they say what they say. You're going to hear a third of it, but you at least can go back and read it or
Right.
listen to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it isn't gone into the ether.
Yeah.
And for the physicians or the nurses who have to tell this, they're dreading it. They're trying to be as kind as they can, but give people a notebook and give people here's the oncologist or three oncologists we'd recommend. If you're in my office, let's go out front and let's make the appointment.
Right.
Right now, all this uncertainty, it's the end. Well, it's not the end because I know the next step.
Yeah.
Right. And when
Yeah.
you create a project plan, like you talked about, part of what you're trying to do is say, what are the steps that can get me to what I'm trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
And I hope for most of your listeners, it's living a full and healthy life,
Yeah.
cancer free or cancer managed,
Yeah.
but a full, healthy, vibrant life. Why not seize that as the outcome and now work backwards? What are the steps? Well, the first
Yeah.
step, you need an oncologist.
Right. And that's so true. Like nobody has that. It's sort of like, nobody has a tax lawyer in their back pocket until the IRS calls and says, "Hey, guess what? You're getting audited." Right? You may have a CPA or somebody that does your taxes, but you don't have a tax lawyer until somebody
You
says,
need one.
"Hey, you need one." And it's the same it's the same type of feeling of like, "Oh, crap. Like, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
this is not who I want to deal with," right? And it's so true. And like, okay, well, your brain shuts down, your brain goes to the automatic worst case scenario. And in today's world, there's so much technology, there's so many treatment options, there's so many things out there to help either rid your body of cancer or, like you said, manage it to where, like, it's in it now, it's almost in very rare cases, is it truly you're done?
I wish it were very, very rare.
Yeah.
The reason everyone has that reaction is most people know somebody who has died. I mean, it's a
Right.
serious disease.
Sure.
And when we were getting ready for this discussion, you mentioned about how your listeners, they want to live healthy lives.
Right.
They're looking to figure out how to incorporate that into their lives.
Yep.
So for anyone who is scared of cancer, and if you're not scared of cancer, you need to see a psychiatrist. Um,
Right.
anyone who is scared of cancer, early detection is your best
Yeah.
friend because with early detection, there are a lot more options,
Right.
and there's a much higher probability that you will live a full and healthy life.
Yeah.
Where cancer's a bear is when it gets out of a
Mhm.
uh, localized situation. Now,
Right.
the leukemia and lymphoma are never localized as the start, and that's why doctors are so aggressive
Yep.
so quickly. And that's great. Truth be known, I'm not an expert in those types of cancers.
Right. Right.
But solid tumors, which are the other types
Mhm.
of cancers, early detection is the unlock to miracles.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with early detection? You have to be a powerful advocate It's really frightening, Jerry, that the fastest growing group of cancer patients, diagnoses,
Mhm.
are people under 50.
Oh,
So they're
wow.
not right. They're not eligible for screening in most cases,
Yeah.
right? So how do we bring the miracle of early detection to people who it makes no economic or statistical sense to be
Right.
getting colonoscopies in your 20s and 30s and 40s and
Yeah.
mammograms in your 20s, 30s, 40s? I had them. They're like, okay, this is fun. We can't really see much,
Yeah.
right? So, what's the answer? And the answer is advocacy.
Yeah.
So, if you sense something off with your body, do not let anyone dismiss you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My sister was 29 when she felt a lump, a
Oh, wow.
tiny, like a pebble, like
Mhm.
grains of sand,
Yeah.
right under her arm. And she goes to her doctor and she's like, I feel something. I said, you're 29. You're an elite athlete.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, she had just done an Ironman,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Elite. I'm sure it's nothing. Let's just keep an eye on it. A month later, it hadn't changed, but it was
Mhm.
still there. And she goes back and she says, I would like nothing removed.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we'll send you to a general surgeon. They remove nothing,
Mhm.
and nothing turned out to be triple negative breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
And she survived.
Mhm.
Again, the stories, part of why I wrote my book, I was, I think, the 12th cancer diagnosis in my family,
Wow.
and the vast majority of us have lived,
Yeah.
which is statistically what happens. Most
Mhm.
people live, but not everyone.
Yeah.
And I wish it was everyone. But my sister had to fight doctors to say, take it out.
Right.
And then they were all in shock that it's cancer. And she's
Yeah.
like, well, I am too, because I'm 29, but
Mhm.
thank God I didn't leave it alone.
Yep.
So, and by the way, I don't know how many of your listeners are people of color, but this is magnified with people of
Oh, yeah.
color where, they don't want to disrespect the doctor by
Mhm.
challenging them. So,
Yeah.
part of healthy living is saying, I know my body. I
Mhm.
touch my body. I am aware of what's happening in my body. And if something new shows up and sticks around for any period of time,
Right.
I want to know, how do we
Yeah.
conclusively know it's nothing?
Right.
It can be radiological scanning, which includes MRIs or CAT scans. It can be biopsies.
Right.
It can be, it doesn't feel, but I like science ones where we
Mhm.
have a scan or a
Right.
biopsy or a
Yep.
lab, right? Depending
Yeah.
on what it is, you want to be sure it's nothing. And if
Mhm.
it's certainly nothing, go about your life.
Oh,
But
sure.
that's how we get early detection for younger people is we advocate, and you can do it respectfully.
Mhm.
Right? I was
Yeah.
always um, with my doctors. Look, I have a family history. Most people don't, but I have a family history. So I'm hyper vigilant
Mhm.
and I'm okay with extra biopsies if it
Right.
means we rule out.
Yeah.
That's okay with me.
Yeah.
So if you feel something's off and you go to your doctor, it's okay to say, hey, what would be the steps we could take to confirm that
Mhm.
this is nothing?
Right.
That's not a disrespectful question.
Right. Not at all. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about when they hear the word prevention, right? Prevention, people think, okay, eat right, exercise, like
Sure.
do the things to be a healthy person. And that's all true too, right? Don't smoke, all that kind of stuff. That's all part of prevention. But the other part of prevention is what you're talking about is, oh, I noticed something, get it checked out. Don't wait for, and now I feel horrible. My body's in a fight for its life. And like, okay, now I guess I need to go check it out, right? And like in the case of colon cancer, like, oh, I've dealt with diarrhea for 6 months, and now I'm gonna go finally go to the doctor. You know, things like that are we know are not normal,
Right.
but
Right.
for whatever reason, we get in our head of like, okay, either nobody's gonna listen to us, or we're scared, too scared to like find out,
Right. Or
you know?
we're fearful of being judged by our doctor
Right.
and like, oh, you're a hypochondriac,
Yeah.
So here's the thing. You know your own body. If
Mhm.
I have a sensitive GI tract, it's really not a surprise if my GI tract does something funky.
Right.
If it sustains the something funky, I'm going to the doctor,
Right.
right? And so I'm okay if the doctor says, you're being a little paranoid.
Mhm.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yep.
So we need a mindset of the number one person who cares about my health is me.
Mhm.
I'm a partner with my
Yeah.
medical team,
Right.
right? So, yes, you should exercise regularly. That's good for you. You'll feel better.
Yeah.
Yes, you should manage your sleep and your stress. You will feel better. You should eat well. Whatever
Mhm.
fuels your body well, you should do that.
Right.
Um, you probably shouldn't smoke. It's not good for you. You
Right.
should do everything else in moderation, if at all.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, people asked me, when I was going through cancer and when I was writing Crushing the Cancer Curveball, what's the secret to getting through
Mhm.
chemo with
Mhm.
ease? Because really, people are terrified of chemotherapy,
Oh, yeah.
right? Jerry, I know this is coming out in March. I just want your listeners to know my hair, I had chemotherapy less than 2 years ago
Oh,
from
wow.
when this podcast comes out.
Yeah.
So I clearly did not go, even really fast growing hair doesn't grow this fast.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have a full head of hair.
Yeah.
I did not vomit once.
Oh, wow.
Well, when I did sit-ups on an empty stomach, that got me. But
Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that could get me
That would, yeah.
even without chemotherapy. But,
Right.
that's just being stupid. I, didn't get mouth sores. I
Mhm.
didn't get neuropathy, but I was very proactive.
Yeah.
I was proactive about cold capping. I talk about that in the book. Ice mittens and ice socks, which
Mhm.
thoroughly suck, but they keep the neuropathy
Yeah.
at bay.
Yeah.
Mouthwash to keep your mouth hydrated and, keep that ecosystem good. So that reduces the risk of mouth sores.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go through cancer, I don't want to be knocked around. I want to be as much in the driver's seat as I can.
Mhm.
So be proactive about how you're going to try to mitigate. And by the way, when they offer you medication, take it to
Right.
help mitigate the side effects. This
Yeah.
isn't the time to try to prove that you're, a natural born stud. This is the
Right.
time to take care of relief for your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
But we were on the early detection. It is so important
Mhm.
for people to know their family history. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who unfortunately lost his wife to cancer. And after she was diagnosed in her late 50s,
Mhm.
they were talking to her mother and they're like, oh, well, this person, this person, this person, like there's cancer all over her family that
Oh,
nobody
wow.
talked about.
Wow.
So here's my second thing. If you have a family history of any form of cancer, make sure everyone in your family knows.
Right.
Then make sure your doctors know
Yeah.
because early detection is the unlock to miracles.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
knowledge is power. Early detection comes from knowledge.
Yeah.
I tell a story in the book, Jerry, about going to my general practitioner because my elbow was clicking,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
I didn't know it, and it didn't stop clicking. So again, 1 or 2 days of my elbow clicking, I'm going to ignore. A
Right.
week or two of my elbow clicking, I would like somebody to tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And I walk in, he looks at me, he says, take off your shirt and put on a robe. I said, for my elbow? He said, yes. I said, okay, I do this. And he proceeds to do a breast exam.
Mhm.
And I said, doctor, what do my breasts have to do with my elbow?
Yeah.
And he said, absolutely nothing. Your elbow's fine. You're just never walking into my office without getting a breast exam. And
Yeah.
his point was, your lifetime probability is so high. I
Right.
don't want to be the doctor who misses it.
Yeah.
Well, they're not watching me for leukemia.
Sure.
I don't have any history of that.
Yeah.
But if I suddenly had very weird types levels of fatigue
Mhm.
and, other symptoms, I'd go see a doctor and say, what's wrong with me?
Right.
And
Right.
rule out everything.
Yeah.
So, um, but I want to get back to you're living healthy. So
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
the secret, I said to people, the secret of, besides all my proactive stuff, which you should all do,
Right.
was when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had been exercising regularly for 17 years. lifting weights,
Right.
getting my heart rate up, jumping, doing things for bone density.
Hmm.
I had been eating healthy because it
Yeah.
made me feel better to eat healthy. And it turns out if you want to feel healthy during chemo, be healthy before chemo.
Right.
And since you don't know when cancer is going to hit you, if you're worried about cancer, be as healthy as possible
Hmm.
so that you are in the strongest position to face whatever health curveball hits you. And here's what I guarantee there will be one
Yeah.
because life is a terminal condition.
Right. Yep. Well, and just looking at the numbers, right? Like it's 1 in 8 women will get a breast cancer diagnosis in their lifetime,
That's right.
and so like the chances are pretty high that you could be one of those women. You know, the stats for prostate cancer for men, the stats for colon cancer, the stats like when you start putting all those together, it's like, okay, you might not be the person that gets prostate cancer, but maybe you're the person that got colon cancer, or maybe you're the person that got
Right.
pancreatic cancer, or what, like, because it's not the same person that's getting all of those, right? Like,
Hopefully not. What a nightmare.
yeah,
Um,
but but that's the thing that like I think people need to realize is like because it's easy to say, oh, it's only 1 in 8. It's not going to be me for and skip by it. But then when you look at it and say, okay, wait, okay, well if my 8 closest friends, if that person gets this one and that person gets this one and that person, like the domino effect to go, oh, I very well could get this in some form or fashion during my lifetime. And like you
Absolutely.
said, being prepared for it is is a
See,
big piece of it.
well, and if what you end up with is heart disease or what you end
Mhm.
up with is something else, the healthier you are going in,
Yeah.
the more treatment options you have
Mhm.
at your disposal.
Yeah.
So, for anyone who's listening to this podcast and is caring deeply about healthy living or looking for motivation,
Mhm.
I like to be motivated because I feel good, I feel strong, I want to be around for a long time, but I also know it is inevitable that there will be some health issue
Mhm.
because it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And just so you know, Jerry, cancer will afflict 1 out of every 2 Americans, period.
Wow.
Right? So I don't know what type, and that doesn't
Yeah.
include the skin cancers, basal and squamous, which they're
Mhm.
not in that statistic.
Yeah.
So you will know somebody or you will be somebody.
Yeah.
Be as healthy as possible
Mhm.
because one of the things that really aggravates a lot of cancer patients, we're not sick. We don't feel
Mhm.
sick. Other
Yeah.
than when women, if the chemo causes you to lose your hair, you often don't look sick.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be treated like you're sick. I know women that ran marathons during breast cancer treatment,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You almost want to say as a FU to the
Mhm.
cancer, like, I am strong. I am not sick because you're not sick. You have cells that ran amok
Yeah.
and and your immune system was either overwhelmed or couldn't take them out or missed
Right.
them.
Right.
We could say, so many people, when they first hear they have cancer, say, what did I do?
Mhm.
So if there's one thing people hear, nothing.
Right.
It's not your fault.
Right.
It
Yep.
is cancer is cells run amok. There is no reason for it.
Mhm.
And if you are as strong as possible before, as healthy as possible before, and you can know your body and catch it early, your probability of a successful outcome is really high.
Yeah.
So now it becomes a challenge. And
Right.
so one of the things in crushing the cancer curveball is about the mindset. Like it's
Mhm.
okay to react with fear when you
Sure.
first hear it. I mean,
Of
that's
course.
normal.
Yeah.
And to even some people feel very sad,
Mhm.
you know, those of us that have been through it, knowing that our family is going to have to endure this again,
Right.
it's sad.
Yeah.
And I think that which you resist persists. So you
Mhm.
need to feel the feelings.
Right.
I recommend in the book, find a mental health professional to whom you can unload all the feelings without worrying about their feelings,
Right. Yeah.
right? But the after you express the feelings, after you let them course through you, they lose their power. They're
Mhm.
just passing by.
Yeah.
And now you're in the space of now what? And this is where you have the opportunity to adopt a mindset.
Mhm.
And whatever the mindset is that works for you, I'm mad at this thing and I want to destroy it. Okay.
Right.
Uh, this is a challenge to be faced.
Mhm.
What I tell people, and I've interviewed, at this point, I think I've probably talked to 50 different cancer patients and survivors.
Mhm.
When you get through treatment and you get to a place of calm, which is either your cancer is being managed or your cancer is gone.
Right.
People say my life is better because of it.
Oh, wow.
Right. Who would, you never would choose it
Yeah,
because you'd
you wouldn't.
be,
Yeah.
but I mean, 100%, my
Mhm.
life is better. So what's better?
Yeah.
I know what's important.
Mhm.
I know how loved I am,
Oh, yeah.
and I know who loves me,
Right. Yep. Yep.
right?
I bet that shows up.
Um, this life, like waking up in the morning,
Mhm.
feels like a gift.
Yeah.
And I have gratitude, and gratitude is good for the soul.
Oh, absolutely.
So, these three things, I'm thankful that I live in a time where we have good medical care. I'm
Mhm.
thankful I can access it.
Right.
Um, I tell people about the happiness tripwires that I recognized and magnified during my treatment. And
Mhm.
I want all of your listeners to take a moment and do what I'll call the happiness tripwire audit.
Okay.
So just pause for a second. Think about the last 4 hours and what made you smile. You
Mhm.
mentioned to me that you have pets.
Yep.
Did your dog make you smile? Because they
Absolutely.
came great.
Yep.
Now, that moment that you're smiling like that,
Yeah.
I want you to pause in it and just feel it again,
Yeah.
right? Now, what's happening is your body's releasing serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine, and it's giving you a little boost. Now, the benefits of that boost are your immune system just got a boost.
Mhm.
You're thinking more clearly. You're actually calmer and able to hear and communicate
Right.
better. All because I asked you to think about your dog making you smile.
Yeah.
So if you do this happiness tripwire audit and you say, what made me smile? And did it just pass me by or did I hold on?
Right.
And you don't have to hold on very long. Just
Mhm.
hold on. Let it go through you and be like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So I made my whole chemotherapy routine a cascade of happiness tripwires.
Mhm.
There was, I got to wash my hair because I could only wash my hair once a week because I
Oh,
was
yeah.
cold showering.
Yeah.
And, I got to wash my hair and I just enjoyed that feeling
Yeah.
and I let myself savor it.
Yeah.
I had different friends drive me to chemotherapy. So I got 20 minutes with someone different
Yeah.
and we talk about what's going on in their lives and chit-chatting, and it's 20 minutes with a friend. I
Yeah.
mean, that's awesome. When I get to the chemotherapy, the infusion center, we'd go into, I gotta get my labs, and
Mhm.
they'd go for my port, and I'd say, "Oh,
Right.
that's Voldeport. I named it." They laughed. You're laughing.
Yeah.
You laugh, I laugh.
Right.
Happiness tripwire.
Exactly.
I then have to wait, and that's the worst. You're waiting, and you know what comes next is the chemotherapy, and it's going to make me sick. Let's not dwell there. I asked one of my sons be my DJ, and so I
Mm.
had a playlist.
Right.
I asked my other son who was at college to write me a letter every week that I would open digitally
Yeah.
in the infusion center. It was like digital chocolate. I got this
Yeah.
letter. Who gets a letter from their 19-year-old son every week?
Right. Yeah. Nobody.
Right? Like nobody. I don't get them now, but
Right.
I got it then, and it did. It
Yeah.
filled me up. I asked my rabbi to send me a playlist of different prayers and
Hmm.
hymns
Yep.
that would I wanted ones that lifted me up. And
Yeah.
so she chose some that did.
Yeah.
And I felt good. And when I said a blessing, wishing for health, and a blessing to my healthcare providers,
Mhm.
say it to them. I said it to
Right.
myself, but I
Yeah.
felt good.
Yeah.
And all of these things were releasing these hormones into my body. And
Hmm.
by the way, I had other people did things I didn't ask for, but it was great. One of my
Sure.
friends sent me a text every chemo. It was three emojis of the face kisses.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just kiss, kiss,
Hmm.
kiss. And all it said was, I'm thinking of you.
Hmm.
And you smile.
Yep.
So when people
Yep.
say to me, what can I do? My so and so has cancer. I'm like, well, never tell them to be positive, be strong. Don't send them Google links of treatment protocols. Don't tell
Yeah.
them that they need a new diet. Like, all
Yeah.
of this is not going to help. Tell them you love them.
Yeah.
Tell them, I just was thinking about this crazy thing we did together. Do you remember? And send them happiness tripwires.
Right.
And you will be giving them a gift.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean don't talk about the cancer. If they want to talk about the cancer, you're going to talk
Oh,
about the
sure.
cancer.
Sure.
But
Sure.
happiness tripwires, they're abundant and we ignore them.
Yeah.
And they are so good for our health. So I'll
Yeah.
give you the punchline. After all of my chemotherapy, before my surgery, my oncologist looked at my labs at the 12th cycle and said, your labs don't look like a cancer patient.
Hmm.
The only change, I was eating the same, I was
Right.
exercising the same.
Yeah.
The only change was the overt embrace of happiness tripwires.
Right.
And I don't care what's going on in your life, they're there for you.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
all you have to do is catch them as they go by.
Right.
And you don't have to hold them for very long.
Yeah.
It's a firefly. Catch it,
Yeah.
release.
Yeah. I love that. Like, absolutely. Like, I've done the gratitude challenge of sitting at the end of the day and writing down three things that you're grateful for and making sure that they're three different things from the day before. And that's impacted my life and other things. But it's so different to think of it that way because so many people say like, oh, just think positive things. And it's like, what, when you start looking around, especially when you're in that kind of situation where it seems like the world's crashing in and you've got all these things and you've got more doctor's appointments than you've ever had in your life. And you've got, uh, different people coming in and I'm assuming not everybody who is treating you as far as the nurses and doctors and everything they are going through their difficulties of telling people different things. And so they're not always happy when they come in the room and
Mm-hmm.
joyous and it can be a sad time. It
Sure.
definitely can be a sad time. And so I love being able to find those little happy things because you're right. And as far as what it does internally in the focus that we put, if we're focused on just the negative side of it, it drives that negative train and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and harder to stop. And it's like, we're not trying to stop it all at once.
And
Like you
and
said,
look,
it's just boom, just hey, just take a happy
it is
thing.
negative.
Yeah,
Nobody wants cancer.
right.
And the treatment, it's hard. It's unpleasant. You're
Yeah,
getting poked and prodded and you're scared.
yeah,
So the reason I don't like telling people to be positive or be happy is you're asking the cancer patient to do more work.
right.
No more. No, no, no.
Yeah,
The thing about a happiness tripwire is I don't have to ask the patient to do anything. I can just send it.
yeah,
I can just offer it.
right.
Whether that is a meal, a ride, a walk, a
Yeah,
message, a card, we are unlimited. Although I will
right.
say, before you send things like flowers or food or
Hmm.
stuffed animals, ask.
Yeah,
I've had a number of people say, like, we've got enough flowers and the
right.
smell is nauseating.
Yeah.
So you do want to say, can I
Hmm.
bring you a meal?
Yeah,
Can I send you a flower? Can I send you flowers? And if they say I'd rather not, it's
hmm.
not a rejection.
Right.
It's I'd rather not.
Yeah,
And you get to say that.
yeah.
We get to say that at any time in our lives, but when you're going through cancer, you get a little star that, yeah,
Hmm.
you get to say it.
Hmm.
But I think it's really important what you said about the healthcare providers. You know, when I would tell people, oh, we have Voldaport's doing its job, they'd laugh.
Yeah.
I'd laugh.
Hmm.
And whatever bad thing is going on, it's still going on. But for that millisecond, there
Hmm.
was relief.
Yeah,
I'm talking about milliseconds,
yeah,
Jerry.
Yeah.
milliseconds of relief,
Mhm.
because every one of them is releasing those incredibly powerful
Mhm.
hormones.
Yeah.
And that is enough.
Right.
That's enough.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think,
It doesn't take much, and it's similar to, like, I'm an athlete and a runner, and, like, people always ask me when they're starting to run, or like how can you run so much and that kind of stuff, and they're like, do you ever get that runner's high? And I'm like, oh, not every time I run, but I get it. It's not the whole run,
right.
right? It's like, oh, I just forgot where I was. Like, and then I come back to it. I'm like, okay, now I'm struggling through this again. Like, but it's just like, yeah, it's just that millisecond of like, oh, okay, I can get through this. It's not so bad. And granted, sometimes it lasts longer than others, but I'm relating it the same type of way, because it's the same release of hormones
Yeah.
in your system. And if we don't allow that to come into play, it's like we're just stacking up the negative stuff in the hormones on that side of things that are driving the stress and driving the feelings, and that, because that is a balance, and you could very easily get into a depressive state if you don't balance that out with some of those happy hormones.
Well, absolutely. I'm certainly not a psychiatrist or a mental health
Mhm.
professional. And, you know, I do think that if we think of it in the terms of, say, an emotional bank account,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
By recognizing and magnifying the happiness tripwires, we're making little micro deposits
Mhm.
on the positive side,
Yep.
because the negative ones are going to happen and they're unpredictable,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So we kind of just want to keep ourselves in the black,
Yeah.
right? So we need to
Yep.
keep making these little deposits.
Mhm.
And when you're going through cancer, you have more negative,
Yeah.
really trying to drain that account.
Yeah.
So, as the people who love people going through cancer, more micro deposits, more happiness
Yeah.
tripwires. I don't know if people realize that a 20-second hug
Mm.
has found to be as effective as an antidepressant,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Really just feeling into the hug.
Mhm.
I was amazed at where support and care came from
Mhm.
on my journey.
Yeah.
And it was truly uplifting. I'd never felt so loved and so supported. And Jerry, I hate being dependent. I hate
Yeah.
pity. I used to tell me, like, I have cancer and I'm fine, because I just, like, don't even go to, I'm so
Right.
sorry. All right, now I got
Yeah.
to make you feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
right, like, I have cancer. I'm fine. Here's what I need. It sounds
Mhm.
very cold, but part of why I used Caring Bridge, and again, another thing I recommend in the book, is to communicate in the way that serves you.
Mhm.
I knew, again, 12th cancer,
Yeah.
it's exhausting to tell people the story, the updates, what you know, what you don't know,
Yeah.
over and over again. It's not only exhausting for the patient, but sometimes people don't ask the patient. They ask their partner or their parent
Mm.
or their child. And
Right.
now those people, all of those, by the way, are withdrawals.
Yeah.
Every time you ask, you mean it good, you mean it
Mhm.
well.
Right.
But them having to tell you is bringing them a little down.
Right.
So we created a caring bridge. And the basic concept was everything you need to know will be there.
Mhm.
And when you reach out to us, can we just talk about our lives?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Um, and everything we need will be there.
Right. Well, because
Um,
you're not all of a sudden just the cancer,
right.
right? You're still a person that's got all these other things going on in your life, and you're still the person that loves to do this, that, and the other thing. And depending on what kind of cancer it is, maybe you can't do one of those things for the short term while you're going through treatment or whatever. But, like, it's it's still who
And don't
you
make
are.
assumptions.
The
And
cancer
don't
is
make
not
it
who you are.
say that again and say it loud.
Because it's so true. And it's like, and we forget, and it's sort of like how we get bought into, like, I am this person because that's my career. Like, you're still Joelle, you're still Gary, you're still whoever that, like, this is who I am. I'm not that person. Do I do that? Sure. Do I have to
Right.
fight cancer right now? Yeah, that's on my plate. But that's not who I am.
That's right. And don't make assumptions about what you can and can't do,
Right.
right? I asked my doctor, I said, look, my son's going to play his first collegiate baseball games in
Mhm.
Florida. I live in California.
Yeah.
I really would like to go. Is that possible? And she said, I can't see why not.
Yeah.
As long as your labs look good,
Mhm.
I wouldn't stay in a hotel and I wouldn't go out to restaurants. Like, try to be as limited, but
Yeah.
baseball's an outdoor game, so
Mhm.
that's fine. The airplanes, they're pretty safe.
Yeah.
So no, I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah.
Not only did I go to his first games, I traveled twice. I went
Yeah.
to more games
Yeah.
because I was able to keep my health as strong as possible.
Mhm.
And that gave me such a release of happiness.
Yeah.
Like the benefits so outweighed the risk. I
Mhm.
lifted weights. I couldn't run. I
Yeah.
tried. I first off, truth, I hate running.
Yeah.
But part of the exercise that I was doing would involve run
Yeah.
800 meters, run 400. I
Mhm.
noticed that my cardiac capacity was way
Yeah.
impacted pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It also came back pretty quickly.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, I could walk.
Mhm.
I could ride a bike,
Yeah.
but really pounding it out running was a little bit much. So I made an
Yeah.
adjustment.
Yeah.
But I know people, I said, who run marathons. I know people who rock climb.
Mhm.
Um, most of us keep working if our work
Right.
is work you can do. One of my friends is a labor and delivery nurse. She couldn't work because she
Mhm.
can't be exposed
Yeah.
in a hospital.
Yeah.
So she was on disability.
Mhm.
But I worked and I worked well.
Yeah.
Work was a great distraction. But if
Mhm.
work doesn't serve you and you can take time or restructure it,
Right.
ask because
Yeah.
you don't know what's possible if you
Yep.
don't ask for it.
Yep. Well, and that's where it goes back to something I read that you put in is that like you're the coach in the situation, right? You've got your team around you, your medical team, your support team, your family, friends, and all those things. But like if you're not the coach taking care of like this is what I need, because the coach on any sports team, okay, they draw out the plans, they do all that, and you might not know the treatment plan as far as the chemo and that kind of stuff. And so it's easy to go, okay, well, they're the coach, they're telling me what to do. But the coach on any team goes up to the player at some point and says, "Can you do this, please, right now?"
Right, right.
Right? And it's like, "Can you do this?" And so like taking that asking standpoint of like, "Oh, I'm not just gonna don't just tell me what to do. What about this? Can I do this? Can I do that? Have you ever had
Right.
anybody ask about this type of thing?" Um, because then you get more some of the control back,
And that's so empowering.
and that's huge.
It's huge. And your healthcare team, they want you to live. They
Yeah.
want you to be as successful as possible. And so telling them what you need. I had people who traveled to weddings. I mean,
Mhm.
my sister got married in the middle of chemo at a
Wow.
destination wedding,
Nice.
right?
That's
And
awesome.
was not what any of us planned that it would be in
Mhm.
the middle of chemo.
Yeah.
She wore a wig, so we all wore wigs.
Right.
And it was interesting. It was a cancer-free weekend. We were all commanded. We
Yeah.
weren't talking about
Mhm.
it. We were celebrating love and we were celebrating joy.
Yeah.
And again, so great.
Yeah.
So your life doesn't stop.
Right.
And even if, God forbid, you're in the group that this is going to lead to the end,
Mhm.
right? I had a dear friend who was in that group and she did lose her fight.
Mhm.
But oh, how she lived
Right.
the last 2 years of her life. I mean, her whole life, but
Mhm.
she, it was living all out,
Yeah.
right? Doing
Yeah.
all the things she wanted to do and she could do,
Right.
and collaborating with her medical team to say, I want to be able to do these things.
Mhm.
How do we do it?
Yeah.
Right? When
Yeah.
my mother was going through treatment for her third cancer, and my son's bar mitzvah was in the middle of it.
Mhm.
She's like, I'm not missing that. How do I do it?
Right.
And the healthcare teams know like those opportunities. I didn't have any major events other than the baseball during
Mhm.
my cancer treatment, so I created them. I call them mini milestones because they're
Yeah.
so helpful.
Yeah.
right? So I made a party out of done with half of the chemo. Let's have a dessert party
Yeah.
because I can't drink.
Right.
Um, End of chemo, let's have a party. The night before I have my surgery to replace the breasts that tried to kill me with
Right.
new ones that
Yeah.
hopefully would not have such malicious intent. I had a
Right.
bye bye boobies party,
Nice.
right?
Yep.
And, you know, these little moments, these mini milestones brought together people,
Yeah.
brought me joy and happiness, and basically were dumping on the positive side of my emotional bank account.
Yep.
And these were not, I mean, I want to be clear, like these weren't like catered affairs. These were like,
Sure.
come on over to
Yeah.
the backyard and
Right.
yard and have a barbecue with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And that was great,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah.
so I offer to all of your listeners, this doesn't have to be hard or expensive.
Yeah.
Everything's right in front of you.
Mhm.
Whatever makes you smile, how do you make it happen more?
Right.
And we know that having something to live for, a milestone,
Yeah.
really helps.
Right.
So if you don't have one, like no one's getting married or no one's being born or no one's graduating, you don't
Yeah.
have a major life event, who
Make it up.
cares?
Yep. Yep. Make it up. Well, and I love that. And the other thing that I thought of is that, every now and then I see somebody post something about like, what would you do different with your life if you knew you only had 6 months left? And everybody comments like, oh, I'd take that trip or I'd do that thing or and it's like, okay, well, you know,
Do it.
do it, prepare yourself for, okay, that could be at any moment. Like, and I've said this and it's sort of, I've had people say, oh, that's morbid but I'm like, the people that I try to impact and coach, I'm like, and help them. And it's like, I try to set them up to be successful because if I'm hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm no longer available to help them. And so like, you never know when that moment's going to happen.
You don't.
And, you know, living your life to the fullest all the time sets you so whether it's, you know, fully healthy, optimally healthy by medical standards or not, but just having that type of track record going into a fight like this, I think sets you up for an easier battle. It's not an easy battle, but an easier battle coming through it.
Absolutely. I think that's right. And I think there's a lot of evidence that shows that.
Yeah.
I think, look, people said, how did you live with an 80% lifetime probability of breast
Mhm.
cancer? Like, how do you wake up every day?
Right.
I was like, well, I get in the car every day. I, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that's comparably risky,
Right.
and I don't worry about that. So,
Right.
you know, life throws curveballs.
Hmm.
You will see curveballs. They are
Yeah.
unavoidable.
Yeah.
So the question is, what's your approach?
Hmm.
And what you talked about, that living full out, that's why people say my life is better now
Yeah.
than before, because I do the things. So there's a woman I wrote about in the book, and she was 37 when she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. Her youngest child was 11 months old. She
Wow.
had 3 kids.
Mm.
This woman, I was nervous about interviewing her
Yeah.
because how would that, this is different. Um, she's amazing. And what she told me was, I have no evidence of disease right now, which is great. It's
Mhm.
managed,
Right.
means it's responding to treatment.
Hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
I always wanted to see all 50 states with all 3 of my kids.
Oh, wow.
And I just wasn't doing it. And
Mhm.
then I got this diagnosis. And that, I think I was talking to her 4 years after her diagnosis. She said, I have seen 28
Oh, wow.
and I will get all 50.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, they just literally look at where's it cheap to go,
Hmm.
and that's where we're going to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all 3 kids, they go see the states.
Mhm.
That was her thing.
That's cool.
And it was cancer that made it from an idea
Hmm.
to something she's doing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
wish it didn't take that. but
Right.
we're all human and we all do this. We get caught up in the busy
Yep.
of
Yep.
life.
Yep.
And so if you can capture a happiness tripwire, set a mini milestone that lights you up,
Yeah.
and do something that you've had on the list of, God, I really would like to.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good year.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to let people know how to get the book, how to follow you, how to connect with you,
Sure.
and all that stuff. So
So you can buy the book. It's Crushing the Cancer Curveball.
okay.
It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. You can only get it online. It's not in the stores.
Okay.
If you want to get in touch with me, go to joellekaufman.com. That's my
Okay.
name.
Awesome.
joellekaufman.com. You will find a way to get on the email list. I don't send things other than the book's available.
Right.
So you're not getting onto some spam list. But more importantly, there's a workbook, there's checklists, there's
Mm,
resources.
yeah.
There are tools that I built on my journey that I just made available
Yeah.
to people because why reinvent it?
Right.
When I was tracking the side effects, again, being aware of what's happening in your body is 10 times more important when you're going through treatment
Yeah.
because you actually want to tell them everything and you can't remember it.
Yeah.
Right. So I used a Google sheet and I was tracking, like I felt
Mhm.
something, it went on the sheet. Today, maybe
Right.
I would have told ChatGPT or Claude, like, and this
Yeah.
happened. But I
Nice.
shared the sheet with
Yeah.
my doctors. So I'd come in for my every 3 week check-in and they'd say, so anything unusual? I said, well, let's look at the sheet.
Yep.
And then they'd look and they'd pattern match. And for example, I was taking a medication to prevent nausea
Hmm.
because I really didn't want nausea.
Right.
And it was wreaking havoc with my GI tract.
Hmm.
I didn't know this,
Yeah.
but I was recording that this is the havoc going on with
Hmm.
my GI tract.
Yeah.
And I also was tracking what I was taking. And the nurse practitioner looked at it and said, are you nauseous all the time? I said, no, I'm never nauseous. She's like, stop taking that. That's causing the
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
GI stuff.
Yeah.
So let's see if you can not feel nauseous without it
Yeah.
and see if that cools down your GI tract. That was perfect.
Nice.
But I wouldn't have connected those dots because
Right.
I'm not a doctor.
Yep. Yep. Well, and that's it's to me an immediate thing I just thought of when you were talking about that is like we all go to the grocery store with a grocery list, or
Right.
most of us do, right? You go to the grocery store with a grocery list so that you make sure that you get everything, and you get in there and maybe you see somebody you know, or you look at something, you go like, oh, that's on sale, and you forget other things. You get home and you're like, oh, I forgot to get, and for me it's always batteries. Like, oh, I forgot to get batteries. Right. And it's like, oh, and then your kids start asking, like, I can't do this because I don't have batteries. And it's like, oh, I got to go back to the store. And so it's that same mentality of like, okay, don't, we all know we're going to forget something. Like it's life.
Yeah.
Like,
Just have a simple way to capture it.
yeah,
And so I've made those available on my
awesome.
site. So if you go to joellekaufman.com, if you buy the book, interestingly, I put QR codes in the book.
Nice.
So throughout the book, you'll find, here, I'll show you one. Like at the end of a section, you find a
Yeah.
QR code, which will bring you to the website and bring you to the tools that I'm talking about.
Right.
And make the tools your own.
Yeah.
I built a workbook. So if you are going to a doctor's appointment, in the workbook, it has how do I prepare for this?
Right.
And what are the questions? But even if you're thinking about how am I going to tell my boss
Mm,
that I have cancer?
yeah.
Like the number one cause of stress for cancer patients is financial.
Yeah.
And what they're worried about is losing their job
Hmm.
or having to work fewer hours and not getting paid. So
Right.
their expenses go up, their income goes down. It's a very serious
Yeah.
situation. And there's tons of resources to help if, like early detection for your body, if you know I'm going to be in financial hot water. So we
Yeah.
built a calculator.
Nice.
So put in your numbers and know, okay, if I have to go down to 50% work, here's when financially this gets hard.
Right.
And if I have kids and I have to add more childcare or I have to travel
Mhm.
to treatment, you just
Yeah.
figure it out. And a
Yeah.
lot of times people don't want to, just like they don't want to tell people about the lump they found.
Mhm.
Once you get over the fear, let the fear happen, and then say, if I know early, I have more options of what
Oh,
I
yeah.
can do.
Yeah.
And I always want more choices,
Mhm.
more options.
Yep. Yep.
So I hope people will buy the book. Like I said, it's available
Yeah.
everywhere online that you'd buy books. There's a digital version, there's a print version.
Cool.
It's designed that you can say, look, here's the stage I'm at. I'm at
Yeah.
the surgical stage. Well, then don't read the diagnosis part. You're past it.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
read the surgical
Yeah.
part. And if
Cool.
you are a diagnosis, start there. If you're
Yeah.
pre all of that, or you just want to know because someone you love is going through it,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
people tell me they go end to end, they read the book in under a day.
Yeah.
It's an uplifting read.
Mhm.
You will not read this book and feel bummed or scared or sad. You will
Nice.
feel powerful.
Awesome. Well, I was going to suggest that as far as like, okay, you may not be the person, but like we talked about, you probably know somebody who's going through it, and how can you be most beneficial is a support system for them. So,
Happiness tripwires, Jerry.
yep, yep,
Put
that's
happiness
awesome.
tripwires in their path
Yep,
that they cannot miss.
yeah. So, Joelle, I want to thank you so much for being a guest. It's great information, super helpful. And I mean, I highly recommend everybody go out and get the book because I know everybody's going to be dealing with this at some form or fashion in their life.
Yeah, it's good to have
So,
it, even
yep,
when before you need it. Have it
yep,
on the shelf. You'll be able to pull it out, and
right,
it will give you something
yeah,
that gives you more hope and more confidence.
right. So, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.